This is The Sweater with Kathleen Dames. Over our 12-episode season, I will share some of my best sweater knitting techniques with you while we knit a sweater together. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 11. I wasn't quite sure how to do the fingers because I always hold up fingers with 11 or 1 and 1. I'm so excited because episode 11 means that I'm pretty much finished with my sweater. Jane's holding it for me. So as you can see, all the knitting is done. I cast off. I've sewn up my seams. I've woven my underarms, and I've woven in all the ends. And I'll show you a little highlight of weaving in the ends, just in case you're not sure how best to do it. And let me say that the way I weave in ends is the way I weave in ends. If you weave them in differently and it works for you, go for it. You don't need to change anything. But if you've been wondering about different ways to weave in ends, you will see how I like to do it. I have another way to do it too that's a little more invisible, but I'll save that for the next season of the sweater, where we're going to knit a pullover that can be worn inside out. And for that, you really want to hide all the ends. So now I'm going to weave this end in on the wrong side on some stockinette fabric. There are a few ways to weave in ends. This is the way I usually do it, especially if I know the inside of the work is not going to be seen. I usually go through at least an inch worth of stitches. So here, I'm just taking the needle through 6 stitches. And then what I like to do is turn the work around and go back the way I came, shifting a few rows above or below, and just weaving it in with the needle. Again, this is why I like to use a blunt tip needle, because it doesn't snag the threads. Some people like to sew through the threads, but I generally don't. And so there you can see I went there and back. And now I will snip off the thread. Some people wait and snip off the threads after they've done the blocking. I tend to tidy them all up right before I block the sweater. So I have one last thread to weave in, and I thought this would give you a good opportunity to also see how I weave for garter stitch. So here's the last one. So many little threads, but it's totally worth it. Make a nice, tidy inside of your sweater. Now I've already woven in one of the tails from the cast on edge over here, so I'm going to move over and work in this area. I often like to go through, if there's a seam, I kind of like to go through it. And then I look for a purl bump. I prefer not doing the very top row, so I'll go here to the second row. I'll go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it's a little easier turning back here at the cuff than it was before the underarm. And now I will go up to the next ridge. And again, all the bumps in a row. 3, 4, 5, 6. Be very gentle, just like we were gentle before with our weaving and our seaming. You don't want things to pucker. In fact, again, like I suggested with the seam, I recommend pulling this a little to loosen up the thread through the stitches so that there's no bunching. And one last snip. So what I need to do next is give my sweater a bath. And I think I've brought this up quite a few times over the course of the podcast. Not that I'm saying you need to wash your sweater every time you wear it or anything, but you do need to wash it. I think it's really important. You've been handling all this yarn for quite a while. It's been wadded up in your bag. And it may have had dust and other people touching it before you even bought the yarn. So you just want to give it, you know, make it fresh and clean. It also, by giving it a bath, letting it sit in the water for quite a while, not just 5 minutes, let it really soak in. All the stitches, all the yarn gets saturated, and then when you lay it out flat to dry, everything settles into its final position, and it really helps smooth out the fabric, and it's just, oh, it makes everything smooth and lovely. Right now you can see my collar is sort of all roly-poly, and that's gonna smooth right out. Everything will be nice and soft and smooth and ready to wear. So what I like to do if I'm only doing one sweater is to fill up my bathroom sink with slightly warm water. You know, if you're really worried that your yarn is going to felt, you certainly can use cool water, but I think to get all of those oils out, to smooth everything out, a warm bath is the perfect thing. I often use a wool wash. In the next segment you'll see I'm using soak, but any wool wash is fine, even a little shampoo. When I'm desperate, I've been known to use some really gentle hand soap. The issue is making sure it's gentle. You don't want any really harsh cleansers stripping things away. You just want to gently remove excess oils to make everything clean and sweet smelling. So we'll put it in, we'll fill up the sink with warm water, put in the bubbles, swish it all around, and then submerge your sweater. Make sure there's enough water to cover your sweater and really cover it, because the fibers are going to start to absorb some water and you don't want them just sitting in like a puddle, okay? They deserve a bath. You have worked hard on this sweater. This sweater has been there for you. You need to be there for it and give it the nice relaxing bath that it deserves. So let it sit, set a timer for at least 15 minutes, possibly up to an hour. But definitely, definitely give it a chance to relax and fully absorb the water. One thing to do is to check it after a little while and see that the fibers are actually absorbing the water. And you can usually tell. There'll be a little difference in the full-on sort of color of the yarn as it absorbs the water. So let it sit and relax. Be gentle. We've been gentle all along with things like weaving in ends, doing our underarm Kitchener stitch, doing our mattress stitch on the sleeves. You just want to be gentle, relaxed. You don't need to be mean. You don't need to really beat up your sweater or anything. Okay, so here we are. Got some warm water, some wool wash, creating those bubbles. I want it to be just warm throughout. And now, time for the bath. Gently submerge everything into the sink. Make sure it's kind of floating, there's room, there's extra water. There we go. All ready for the bath. And I'm going to set a timer. Where's my little timer? Here it is. And I'm going to give it half an hour. As I said, you can't really hurt it by letting it soak for a little longer. And I can start to see it's really absorbing, taking in all the water. There's room, it's got enough, it's able to move around. So now I'm just going to let it be for a while, and then we'll come back and go on with the next steps. So once it's had its bath, drain the sink, squeeze out the excess water gently and the bubbles. Even though my wool wash says that you don't have to rinse it, I usually like to. I have sensitive skin, so that's just the way I am. So then I'll pick up my sweater, gently hold it, you know, like a baby with both hands. Don't leave it hanging by a thread or anything, because when the yarn is wet, it's much more fragile. So you want to be gentle. Have I said that enough? I think the word of this episode is gentle. So pick it up, squeeze it out, fill up the sink again with same temperature water. That's another thing. We don't want to shock the wool because that can cause felting. It's less likely to happen if you've been using a sock yarn, something superwash, but let's not chance it. So if you're going to rinse it out, fill the sink up with water, place the sweater back in, gently submerge it. It only has to sit for like a minute then, because we really want to sort of swish out any remaining soap, any remaining oils. And again, pick it up with both hands, gently, like it's some little treasure, which it is. You've worked so hard. Squeeze out the water again, gently. Drain your sink. All right, our time is up. So, I'm gonna drain the sink, gently squeeze out the excess water. Looks like there's just a tiny bit of dye runoff, nothing to be worried about. And everything that's super saturated, all the stitches have had a chance to relax in their bath. I'm just waiting for my slow sink to drain, and then we'll fill it up with some more water. There we go. And hopefully the chicken will stop clucking. All right, here we go. One gentle rinse should be sufficient. If you find that your yarn is giving off a lot of dye, you may need to rinse more than once. It is good, you want the water to run clear. There we go. Just gently sort of squish things around. Oh yeah, that's great. Stop the water, drain it out. I feel like that's a sufficient rinse. It's good. I do want a little bit of the smell of my soak wash to stay in the sweater, but not too much. As I said, I have sensitive skin, so I like to rinse things out. Okay, so there's still a lot of water in here. So we're gonna go to the next step, which is the stomping on the towel part. And now comes one of the many fun parts. Gather up an old towel that you have, make sure it's clean. I like to just lay it out on the floor of the bathroom, lay the sweater down gently, sort of pat it into position, roll it up in the towel, and take off your shoes and socks and stomp all over. Stomp all over your sausage roll of sweater and towel. We're really getting rid of as much excess water as we can, and that will make the actual blocking time go a little bit faster. If you have a, sort of hand squeezed sweater, there's still a lot of moisture in those fibers, and it will take longer to dry. Having said that, don't expect your sweater to be dry in an hour. Unless you live in the desert, someplace with like 0% humidity, it's going to take a while. I like to leave my things alone overnight if possible. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna lay the sweater out pretty much the way we're going to lay it out when we lay it flat to dry. And I like that I can use half the towel, put the other half of the towel over the sweater, so I sort of feel like I get twice the towel absorption. Roll it up. We've got our little sausage here. And now just have a stomping party, and oh, my feet are getting wet because there is still a lot of moisture being held in that wool. Okay, there we go. So we've stomped on our sausage roll of towel and sweater. Your towel should be kind of soaked, and that's why I recommend removing your socks, because otherwise your socks get all wet, and I don't like wet socks on my feet. So unroll your package and have another towel or some other blocking surface that you can lay your damp sweater out on. And I usually do it on another folded towel. I have some old towels that I keep just for this purpose. And lay your sweater out, gently smooth everything into position, make sure it's all laying flat and comfortable. And then, I know this is hard, I know, but leave it alone. Leave it alone. Go away. The most you can do to help things along is to put a fan on it. And I often do that. I have a little fan that I can just direct at my sweater, and that will help the water evaporate. Sometimes I find that the towel underneath will get damp. It will be absorbing water from underneath. Not all of the water will evaporate out the top. So sometimes I will change it after a few hours for a third towel. Other times I just leave it alone. If you leave it alone overnight, by the time you come back to it in the morning, your sweater and your towel and everything will be dry. Now, I don't recommend, a lot of times when we say blocking, if we're talking about something lace, we mean pinning it out, really forcing it into position. And that's not what I mean when I say block this sweater. For this, I just mean leave it be, lay it flat out to dry, no pins, no forcing, again, we're being gentle. So, okay, and now it's time to lay our sweater out in its final resting place. Gently remove it from the towel and spread it out. This is a chance to smooth out the fabric so that it'll dry. We're sort of imprinting it with how we want it to dry. Okay. All right, I find the best thing is just to smooth it out. There, see how my neck was a little, it had gotten a little rolly. So we want to sort of encourage it to chill out. I find generally just a lot of patting and smoothing is the best thing. Encourage those stitches to all get with the program and just lay flat. Oh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to put my new sweater on. Once it's completely dry though. Seriously, leave it alone. Just leave it alone. And that really is all you need to do for blocking. Some people like to block with steam, and that is okay, but I still really like to wash it. I like to wash it, get all those oils off your hands. My hands are dry in the winter. I'm constantly putting on lotion and then handling the wool. It doesn't hurt it at all, but I like a clean sweater, at least to start. Of course, the good thing about wool is that it doesn't get dirty really easily. It tends to repel dirt, and so you don't need to wash it very often. It obviously depends on how often you wear yours. I like to wash them, it depends on how often I've worn them, but definitely I wash everything at the end of the season when the weather's getting too warm to wear sweaters. However, I wear my Solstice Cardi, or the one that Jane's wearing, pretty much year round because it's a small sweater, it's lightweight. So I'll try to wash it, maybe every change of season. And that's really all we need to know about blocking in a sink. The other way to the other way to wash your sweater would be to use your washing machine. Obviously, there are lots of different washing machines, so I can't really give you the same kind of specific guidance. If your machine has a wool wash setting, that's certainly something you should explore. Read your manual, get to know your machine, figure out what works best for you. If I have a bunch of sweaters, I will often fill up my machine with warm water, and I will use the delicate cycle. And I won't really have the first part of the cycle run where it's just swishing back and forth too much, I'll fill it up, I'll put in some wool wash, I'll put the sweaters in that I want to wash, usually at least 2, sometimes 4, whatever fits comfortably. I don't want it to be crowded in my machine. But then I'll let it swish back and forth for 30 seconds, and then I'll open the lid, which turns off the agitator. And I will just let it sit there. Just like we let it sit in the sink, I'll set a timer or come back in an hour or whatever. It doesn't hurt your sweater to leave it soaking longer, just as long as you're gentle with it. And then I'll let the machine, I'll close the machine, move it forward. I have the little dial, and I'll turn it to the next step, which is spinning out the water. And then I'll usually let the rest of the cycle run. I'll let it spin the water out along with the wool wash, and then it'll do a rinse. So it'll fill up again. It'll agitate just a little bit, and that's good to remove all the soap and whatever. And then it will spin out everything again. And then the only sad part is then you don't get to do the stomping on your sweater part, which clearly I really enjoy. So again, if you're using your machine, when you're all done, you're gonna wanna lay everything out flat to dry and just leave it alone. As a general rule, I think it's not a good idea to put your sweater in the dryer. Unless it's cotton or linen, I really think it's not kind to the wool. So lay it out flat to dry, let it relax and settle in, and then you'll have a lovely, clean sweater ready to wear and to enjoy for a long time to come. And then, of course, next time, you're gonna see me in my sweater. I'm so excited. I love the color. I'm trying to figure out what my outfit is gonna be to really show off my sweater to its best advantage. And so until then, until my sweater is dry and I've sewn on my buttons, I hope things are going well for you. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day and happy knitting. Bye. This is season 1 of The Sweater, and we are knitting the Solstice Cardi together. Many thanks to Karen at Roundtable Yarns, Natalie at Remembrances Pottery, Corinna at Picnic Knits, Tara Swiger and my fellow Starship captains, and you for being part of this knitting adventure. Don't forget to visit KathleenDames.com/thesweater to sign up for the newsletter before March 25th and get your free copy of the Solstice Cardi pattern in the welcome email. Is it after March 25th? Purchase your copy of the Solstice Cardi from my Ravelry shop. And be sure to share your project on social media using the hashtags KDSweater and Solstice Cardi. Questions? Comments? Just want to share your progress? Visit the Kathleen Dames Design Ravelry forum for support and camaraderie. Thanks so much for joining me, and happy knitting!